Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling Gary Keller's The One Thing, and it's a book that really kind of shakes up the way we think about productivity. It's all about kind of ditching those common myths and really zeroing in on that single most important task that you can do to rocket you towards your goals. And he calls that your one thing. And we've got some really great real-world examples to kind of unpack today, like how Steve Jobs really wielded the power of no and the surprising connection between your willpower and what you had for breakfast.
Yeah, and you know, Keller, he doesn't just kind of throw out theories. He really backs them up with some compelling stories and research. He really dives into the psychology of success.
Yeah, it's fascinating how he starts by debunking these 6 lies that we often tell ourselves about productivity.
Mhm.
For example, we tend to think that everything matters equally, but is that really true?
Not at all.
Yeah.
You know, Keller, he brings in Pareto's principle, which is the 80-20 rule. And that states that, roughly 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts. Think about it. How can you apply this to your own work? What are the tasks that truly move the needle? It's about identifying and focusing on that crucial 20%.
That's a brilliant way to look at it. It makes me think about a story that Keller shares about Joseph Juran, who was this quality control expert. And he found that just a tiny number of flaws often caused the majority of defects at General Motors. Like, this isn't just some kind of abstract principle. It's a powerful insight that can really transform the way we work and the way we achieve results.
Absolutely. And it applies across, different areas of life too. Think about, your own experiences. Have you ever had a single action or project that disproportionately impacted your career or personal life?
You know what? That's so true. Like, writing my first book was a major turning point for me. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely my one thing at the time, and the results were beyond anything I could have imagined. You know, it really solidified my expertise, and it opened up so many opportunities.
That's a perfect example of how focusing on the vital few can lead to some really, extraordinary outcomes.
Yeah.
And it even applies to something like learning an instrument.
Oh, for sure. I remember when I was struggling to learn guitar, I was trying to practice everything at once, and I was getting nowhere. And this legendary guitarist that I knew told me, he said, if you can only do one thing, practice your scales. So I focused on the minor blues scale, and suddenly this whole world of rock solos opened up for me.
It's amazing how this principle works in so many different contexts. And it brings us to another lie that we tell ourselves, the myth of multitasking. We think that we're being super efficient by juggling, multiple tasks at once. But research shows that task switching comes at a very steep price.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that. But tell me more about the research behind this. Like, what's really going on in our brains when we try to multitask?
Each time you switch between tasks, there's a cognitive cost. It takes time for your brain to refocus and to kind of get back up to speed. And for complex tasks, this time penalty can be more than double. So you're not truly doing multiple things simultaneously. You're rapidly switching back and forth, and your productivity takes a major hit.
So focusing on one thing at a time is actually more efficient in the long run. That's a big shift in thinking for many people, myself included.
It is. And it leads us to the lie of a disciplined life. We often think that we need to be disciplined in every area of our lives to achieve success. But Keller, he challenges that idea. He suggests that it's not about constant discipline, but rather about habit formation and selected discipline.
That's interesting. So it's about choosing the right habits and applying discipline strategically to make those habits stick. It's not about becoming some kind of superhuman who's perfectly disciplined 24/7.
Exactly. Think about Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer. He was diagnosed with ADHD as a child, and his teacher thought that he'd never be able to focus on anything. But through discipline in one area, swimming, Phelps transformed his life. It's about finding that one area where you need to be disciplined and making it a habit.
Wow, his story is so inspiring. It shows that discipline can be a powerful force for change, but it doesn't have to rule your entire life. And speaking of willpower, Keller debunks the lie that it's always available on demand. He says it's actually a limited resource that fluctuates throughout the day.
That's right. Just like a muscle gets tired after exertion, our willpower depletes as we make decisions and as we resist temptations.
That makes me think about that fascinating marshmallow test, where they offered kids one marshmallow immediately, or they could get two if they could wait. The kids that could delay gratification, they were more successful later in life. It really shows how important willpower is even from a young age. But knowing that willpower is limited, how can we practically use this knowledge to our advantage?
That's a great question. Knowing that willpower is a finite resource, we can be strategic about how we use it. One key is to tackle your most important task, your one thing, early in the day when your willpower is fresh. Also, make sure you're adequately fueled. Studies have shown that even something as simple as a sugary drink can significantly improve willpower
Oh,
performance.
wow, I would never thought of that. Our brains need that energy to stay focused and to resist those tempting distractions.
Exactly. It highlights the importance of managing our energy levels, both physical and mental, to maximize our willpower throughout the day. And that brings us to another lie that Keller tackles, the myth of a balanced life.
Yes, he calls it an unattainable pipe dream, which I find incredibly refreshing. The pressure to achieve this perfect balance in all areas of life can be so overwhelming.
Absolutely. Instead of striving for perfect balance, which is unrealistic, Keller advocates for counterbalancing. It's about giving appropriate time and attention to various areas of life without pushing things to extremes.
He tells a story about a friend whose parents were obsessed with saving and delayed gratification. And they missed out on so many experiences because they were always focused on the future. And sadly, the mother passed away before ever getting to enjoy those retirement years.
It's a poignant reminder that life is about finding a sustainable rhythm that allows you to enjoy today while still working towards your long-term goals.
It's about finding that balance that works for you, not chasing some idealized version of what balance should be. But there's one more lie to debunk the idea that big is bad.
Right. This one might seem counterintuitive, but Keller believes that thinking big is crucial for success. He draws upon Carol Dweck's research on growth and fixed mindsets. Those with a growth mindset embrace challenges and view failure as a learning opportunity, which allows them to reach their full potential.
It's about pushing beyond our comfort zones and believing in our ability to grow and learn. So if we want to achieve extraordinary results, we need to think big and set audacious goals. Even if we don't achieve everything exactly as planned, aiming high will lead to greater accomplishments than settling for mediocrity.
That's a powerful message. And it makes me wonder, now that we've debunked these 6 common lies about productivity, where do we go from here? How do we actually put these insights into action?
That's where Keller introduces his cornerstone for unlocking extraordinary results, the focusing question. But we'll have to save that for part 2 of our deep dive into the one thing.
So to recap, we've shattered those common myths about productivity, and we've laid the groundwork for a more focused and effective approach. So now let's dive into the heart of Keller's methodology, the focusing question.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
It sounds like this question is really the key to unlocking everything. So what exactly is it and how does it work?
The focusing question, it's deceptively simple, yet incredibly powerful. It's designed to cut through the clutter and help you pinpoint your one thing, that most leveraged action in any area of your life. And the question is this: what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary?
Wow, that really makes you think. I can already see how that question forces you to prioritize and identify that most impactful action that you can take. But how do you actually apply this in real life? It seems pretty broad.
That's where Keller's goal setting to the now framework comes in. It's all about bridging the gap between your long-term aspirations and your immediate actions. He guides you through a process of breaking down those big goals into smaller, more manageable steps for today, this week, and this year.
So it's about connecting your daily actions to your overall goals, making sure that you're always moving in the right direction. I love that he emphasizes the importance of writing down your goals throughout this process. It's not just about thinking about them, but actually making them real and tangible.
Exactly. Writing down your goals helps solidify your commitment and creates a visual roadmap for your journey. It's a powerful way to stay focused and motivated. But now that we've identified our one thing and set our goals, how do we achieve those extraordinary results that Keller talks about?
Well, he provides a simple yet profound formula. Live with purpose, live by priority, and live for productivity. It all starts with purpose. Keller believes that identifying your purpose is like setting your internal compass. It provides direction and fuels your motivation.
I think we can all relate to that. When you have a strong sense of purpose, your actions take on a whole new level of meaning and urgency.
Absolutely. He uses the classic story of Ebenezer Scrooge to illustrate this point. Remember how Scrooge's initial purpose was all about money, and it led him to this miserable and isolated existence? But when his purpose shifted to helping others, his life was filled with joy and fulfillment.
Scrooge's transformation highlights how a change in purpose can completely alter the trajectory of our lives. It's a reminder that our actions should be driven by something deeper than just accumulating wealth or possessions.
So true. And once we identified our purpose, Keller says we need to connect it to our most important priority, our one thing, using the goal setting to the now framework. He calls this living by priority.
It's about making sure our daily actions are aligned with our overall purpose and goals. It's about prioritizing what truly matters and making it the focal point of our efforts.
Okay, so we have purpose and priority. Now let's talk productivity. Keller dives into some practical strategies for maximizing our output once we've identified our one thing. He introduces the concept of time blocking, which is dedicating specific hours to your most important task.
Time blocking is a game changer because it forces you to prioritize your one thing and protect it from that constant barrage of distractions. Keller also emphasizes the importance of working on event time rather than clock time.
I've heard of that, but can you explain the difference? I think some listeners might be confused about what exactly that means.
Sure, clock time is simply looking at the hours on the clock. It's saying, okay, I'm going to work on this for 2 hours and then I'm done whether it's finished or not. But event time is focusing on completing the task no matter how long it takes. It's about results, not just putting in the hours.
So it's about having that laser focus and commitment to see something through to completion.
I love how Keller backs this up with real-world examples of people who have mastered time blocking. He talks about Stephen King, who dedicates 4 hours every day to writing. No wonder he's so prolific.
It's a testament to the power of consistent focused effort. He also mentions an executive assistant who saw her productivity skyrocket after implementing time blocking. It took some adjustments at first, but once her colleagues adapted to her new schedule, she was able to accomplish so much more in less time.
It shows that even in a busy work environment, time blocking can make a huge difference.
Keller also highlights Paul Graham's concept of the maker schedule versus the manager's schedule. Graham argues that for creative and productive work, long, uninterrupted time blocks are essential.
Oh, I can definitely relate to that. Trying to do deep, focused work in short bursts is nearly impossible.
Exactly. Graham contrasts this with the manager's schedule, which is typically broken up into, hourly chunks for meetings and other administrative tasks. So it's about recognizing that different types of work require different approaches to time management. If you're doing creative or highly focused work, you need to protect those large blocks of time.
Absolutely. And once you've implemented these strategies, Keller introduces 3 key commitments that are essential for achieving those extraordinary results. Following the path of mastery, moving from E to P, and living the accountability cycle.
These commitments sound like they're all about continuous improvement and taking ownership of your success. Let's break those down a bit further. What does he mean by following the path of mastery?
Keller emphasizes the importance of continuous learning and improvement in your one thing. It's about striving for excellence and always seeking to refine your skills. He shares the story of Jigoro Kano, the founder of judo, who continued to practice and hone his craft even into his later years.
It's a reminder that mastery is an ongoing journey, not a destination. No matter how successful you become, there's always room for growth and refinement.
Exactly. And what about moving from E to P? What does Keller mean by that?
I'm curious about that one, too. It sounds a bit cryptic.
Keller is referring to the shift from entrepreneurial to purposeful work. It's about constantly seeking out better methods and systems for getting things done. It's not just about working hard, it's about working smarter, finding ways to be more effective and efficient.
So it's about continually evaluating your processes and looking for ways to improve. It's about being intentional and strategic in your approach to work.
Precisely. And finally, we have living the accountability cycle. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, it sounds like it's all about taking ownership of your results, both the successes and the failures, and using feedback to continuously improve.
You're exactly right. Keller believes that accountability is crucial for achieving results. It's about having someone in your corner, ideally a coach or mentor, who can provide honest and objective feedback, helping you stay on track and push yourself further.
It's about leveraging that external support to enhance your performance and reach your full potential. But achieving extraordinary results isn't always easy. Keller also addresses the 4 thieves of productivity, which are obstacles that can derail our progress. These thieves are the inability to say no, the fear of chaos, poor health habits, and an environment that doesn't support your goals.
These are the insidious forces that can creep in and sabotage our efforts, preventing us from focusing on our one thing.
So let's dive into these thieves one by one and see how we can outsmart them. First up is the inability to say no. It's so easy to get caught up in saying yes to everything and everyone, but that can quickly lead to overwhelm and burnout. How does Keller suggest we overcome this thief?
He discusses the art of saying yes strategically. It's about understanding what you're saying no to when you say yes to something. Each commitment we make takes away from our ability to focus on our one thing. He emphasizes leveraging systems and resources to protect your time and prioritize your most important tasks.
He brings in Steve Jobs as a prime example of someone who mastered the art of saying no. Jobs was known for his laser focus and his willingness to cut anything that didn't align with Apple's core priorities.
Jobs understood that saying no to the distractions is essential for saying yes to what truly matters. Keller also provides some practical tips for saying no gracefully, even in situations where you might feel pressured to say yes.
Like offering alternative solutions, redirecting requests to others, or leveraging systems and tools to provide assistance without directly taking on the task yourself. It's about being assertive and protective of your time and energy.
You got it. The next thief is the fear of chaos. This one can be particularly challenging for those of us who like things to be neat and orderly.
Oh, I can definitely relate to that. The thought of things getting messy or unpredictable can be paralyzing. But how does Keller suggest we deal with this fear?
He encourages us to reframe chaos as a natural part of pursuing big goals. He argues that embracing the messiness is essential for growth and progress. Things don't always go according to plan, and that's okay. It's about being adaptable and learning from the inevitable bumps in the road.
So it's about accepting that chaos is often a sign that we're stretching ourselves and pushing beyond our comfort zones. It's a necessary part of the growth process. But what about poor health habits? This one seems pretty straightforward.
It does, but it's surprisingly easy to neglect our health when we're laser focused on achieving our goals. Keller reminds us that we need to take care of our bodies through proper nutrition, exercise, and sleep in order to function at our best.
That's so true. We often sacrifice our health in the pursuit of success, but that's a recipe for burnout and diminished returns.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our physical and mental energy are interconnected. Taking care of our bodies is an investment in our productivity and overall well-being.
And finally, the fourth thief, environment doesn't support your goals. This one can be a bit more subtle, but it can have a huge impact on our ability to focus and achieve our goals.
Absolutely. Keller encourages us to evaluate our surroundings and make necessary changes to create a supportive space for achieving our one thing. This includes our physical space, the people we surround ourselves with, and the systems and tools we use.
It's about creating an ecosystem that enables us to focus on what matters most and eliminates distractions and negative influences.
Precisely. It's about being intentional about how we design our lives to support our goals. So we've explored the focusing question, the 3 commitments, and the 4 thieves. What's resonating with you so far? What stands out as particularly insightful or helpful?
You know what really strikes me is how Keller not only provides a clear framework for achieving extraordinary results, but also addresses those common pitfalls and obstacles that can get in our way. He doesn't just tell us what to do, he also helps us understand the why behind it all.
I completely agree. He provides this holistic approach to productivity, recognizing that it's not just about techniques and strategies, but also about mindset habits and creating the right environment for success.
But before we wrap up, there's one more crucial element we need to explore, Keller's powerful metaphor of the begging bowl. It's a beautiful and thought-provoking way to think about our capacity to receive what we truly desire in life. Let's delve into that in the final part of our deep dive. We've covered so much ground in our deep dive into the one thing. From debunking those productivity myths to exploring the focusing question, we've really unpacked a lot about how to achieve extraordinary results. But before we wrap up, I'm really eager to explore this begging bowl idea that you mentioned earlier. It sounds intriguing.
It is one of the most powerful metaphors in the book, and it ties everything together beautifully. Essentially, the begging bowl, it represents our capacity to receive what we truly want in life. It's about recognizing that our lives are shaped by our desires, and if our begging bowls are filled with unimportant things, there's no room for what truly matters.
That's a profound way to put it. It really makes you think about what you're prioritizing and what you're allowing to take up space in your life. So how do we ensure our begging bowls are filled with the right things? Those things that will bring us true joy and fulfillment.
Well, it goes back to identifying your one thing, your purpose. And living by that priority, by focusing on what truly matters, we create space for those things that will bring us the greatest satisfaction and, make a real difference in our lives.
It's about aligning our actions with our deepest desires and making those conscious choices about what we allow into our lives. Thinking about my own begging bowl, it makes me realize that there are things that I need to let go of to make space for what truly matters, to make room for those things that will really move the needle in my life.
Yeah, it's a continuous process of evaluation and refinement. We need to regularly assess what's filling our begging bowls and make adjustments as needed. Sometimes it's about saying no to certain commitments or opportunities, even if they seem appealing on the surface.
It's about being selective and intentional with our time and energy. And it reminds me of that story that Keller shares about the young boy who solved this complex puzzle of the world. And he was able to solve it by first focusing on putting the man together.
Yeah, it's a beautiful analogy. It highlights the transformative power of focusing on the essential element for achieving success. By putting ourselves together first, by focusing on our one thing, everything else falls into place.
It's about getting that foundation right, about prioritizing our own well-being and our purpose. And from there, we can tackle those bigger challenges and make a real impact in the world.
Well, folks, there you have it, a deep dive into Gary Keller's The One Thing. We've explored the key concepts, the practical strategies, and the powerful metaphors that make this book so compelling.
It's a book that challenges us to rethink our approach to productivity, to focus on what truly matters, and to create a life that aligns with our purpose and our deepest desires. If you're ready to take your productivity to the next level, to achieve those extraordinary results that you've been dreaming of, this book is an absolute must-read. And if you're looking to delve deeper, Keller offers a wealth of resources on his website, theonething.com. You'll find additional examples, research, and tools to help you put these principles into action.
Yeah, it's a treasure trove of information for anyone who's serious about maximizing their impact and living a more fulfilling life.
So what are you waiting for? Go out there, find your one thing, and start building the life you deserve.